Image file formats can be a bit confusing to a beginner in Photoshop. What file format should you be saving your images as? So there's a table here that you can download. It's called Common Image File Formats, and it kind of breaks it down to help you a little bit. But just in summary, I'm just going to talk very quickly about the most common formats here. So, of course, JPEG or JPG is the most common image format. It is used very widely in a number of applications, and it's stood the test of time. So, generally speaking, if you want to send an image to someone and you're not sure whether they're going to be able to open it or not, a JPG is probably your safest bet. But JPG images can lose quality when you save them depending on your settings. So you need to be aware of the fact that when you're saving a JPG image, it needs to be a good candidate for that image format, and you need to make sure you set your compression settings correctly. So, it's pretty safe for print and for web. The PNG format is probably almost as widely used as the JPG format. One of the advantages of the PNG format is that it is lossless. In other words, you lose as much quality, although you can lose a bit of definition depending on your settings. It supports transparency and partial transparency. And also, it's very good for things like text and flat graphics. The main disadvantage is that it doesn't support CMYK, so it's not a suitable format for print. It's for screens only, but an excellent format to use. So JPG and PNG are your two best formats most of the time. GIF is a very old format. The only reason why you should ever be thinking about GIF is if you're making funny little animations for your messaging apps and things like that. It's not suitable as an image format for print or for serious web images. TIFF is a format that is widely used for print layouts. So if you're using an application like InDesign, your images will work really well if you use TIFF because it's lossless. It keeps the quality really sharp. The only disadvantage is that the image sizes can get really big. PDF, we all know what a PDF is. It's portable document format. It's a very safe format to send an image from one place to another. I personally don't use PDFs that much out of Photoshop. If I want a PDF, I would normally use Illustrator or InDesign to create my PDF. And then, of course, there's the PSD format, which is the Photoshop document format. And that's the format that supports everything. It supports your layers, it supports your selections, and it's highly editable, but the disadvantage is that someone needs Photoshop in order to open the program, in order to open the image properly and use it. So it's not very portable, but it is the most editable format. The other formats here I'm not going to talk too much about. You might have come across WebP. It's Google's attempt at kind of replacing JPG. Hasn't been as successful. It is gaining traction. You'll be finding more and more WebP images around on the internet these days. Has some advantages over JPG. SVG, scalable vector graphics. If you have vector logos and icons and things like that, the SVG format maintains the scalability of the image in terms of that it stays vector. Not really that relevant for learning Photoshop at the moment. The AVIF and HEIC formats are pretty new. HEIC is what the iPhone is now shooting at, unless you change it. And it's got superior quality, but again, compatibility is still limited. Same with AVIF. And then there's the RAW format, which is actually a whole lot of different file extensions depending on the camera you're using, and this is the format that you would take off a digital camera if you're a serious photographer, because the RAW format does as little processing as possible to the information that comes off your sensor, so that you as the photographer do the processing afterwards in an application like Photoshop or Lightroom. So RAW is a format that's used by photographers. Just a few notes about JPEG and PNG, because those are the formats that you're going to be working with most of the time, is that they don't support layers. PNG does not support CMYK, and PNG supports transparency. Okay, so you can download this and have a closer look at it. This is by no means all the image file formats. There are plenty more, but these are the ones that you should be aware of. So I'm going to switch to Photoshop, and this image is called image file formats, and you'll see that it's a poster in an artboard, and it contains multiple layers. So there's some bubbles at the top there's some text at the top, there's a logo in the bottom, and then there's an overall background image there. And then there's a set of instructions as to what we need this poster for. So we need an A4 for print for a magazine advert. We need a 450 pixel wide version for a website advert. And we need just the DBS logo 300 pixels wide with transparency for use in various things, maybe t-shirts, stickers, stuff like that. So let's go through the process of saving out in different file formats. So for the whole poster for print, you could save it as a JPG. I'm going to save it as a TIFF because a TIFF is best quality for print, and I can send that to a graphic designer and they can happily lay that out in a magazine and it will be best quality. So I'm going to hide the instructions artboard because otherwise the TIFF will save it out as one thing. And I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'll choose TIFF. On my desktop, I'll just put saved poster formats. And this is TIFF, and I'm going to say save. There's a lot of options here. I'm just going to leave them as they are and say OK. So let's go and have a look. Oops, let me bring this over. So you can see saved poster formats. The TIFF is 32 megabytes. So you can see file sizes can get quite big for TIFF, but it's 300 pixels per inch, and it is the correct dimensions. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is a 450 pixel wide for website advert. So here you could choose JPG because it's just the whole poster, or PNG. I'm going to choose PNG because there is this flat logo here containing just simple color fills, and PNG tends to handle that better, and there's also text. So I'm going to go to the poster artboard in the layers panel, and I'm going to right click and say export as, and I'm going to choose PNG. I do not want transparency, and I'm going to set the width to 450. It's automatically going to adjust the height. I'm going to leave everything else as it is and export, and I'll put it in that folder, and I'll just call it poster. Yeah, that's fine, and save. All right, so if we go and have a look at that, you'll see that we now have the poster, and it is 450 pixels wide. And then finally, we just need the logo with transparency in the background as at 300 pixels. So I'm going to go into this layer for the artboard, and I'm going to go to the DBS logo layer and right click, export as, and I'm going to choose PNG with transparency. So I'm going to put transparency on, and I'm going to set the width to 300. So you can see I've done this all before. So it's remembered my settings. So 300, and then export. It's going to name the file after that layer, which suits me fine, and save. So if I have a look at that option, you'll see that I have the DBS logo, and it has transparency around it, and it is 300 pixels wide. All right, so that's just a little dive into different file formats from Photoshop and understanding when to use which format.